You are wanting to come in and, among other things, recognize the importance of the city's finances being cleaned up. They've got big problems, as you know. How can you be the person come in and do that when you were so integrally involved in what people would describe in their emails as the wasting of $1 billion on consultants and the like? And one of them even pointed out that your ministry, aside from e-health, hired more consultants than everybody else put together on your watch. How do you respond to that?
You've asked a hard question, and you said it had the force of 10 emails, so I hope that you'll allow me an appropriate amount of time to respond with some information that might be helpful. First and foremost, if you want to take a look at my track record on management of fiscal issues, talk to people that are in the hospital sector. That's a $14 billion a year file in Ontario. And the work that I did there really did restore a sense of fiscal confidence to the operation of hospitals. You talked a lot in your time as predictable financing for hospitals, and I delivered that on my watch, and many people will speak to it. With respect to e-health, I think it's important to note that when I was the Minister of Health and left in the spring of 2008, there wasn't one employee at eHealth. It emerged subsequent to that. I was involved in an organization called Smart Systems for Health, which started on the watch of the previous Conservative government. And over the time that I was there, the percentage of people working in that environment that were consultants diminished very, very substantially.
But George, the auditor did write a report long before the one we've just seen,
yes,
3 or 4 years ago, saying, and he went back before the Liberal government, but a lot of the tenure was when you were there, saying at that time, $500 million had been wasted, and then the number climbed towards $1 billion.
With all due respect, you're not respecting the words that the auditor used, Mr. Tory, and I think that you should be more careful on this point. He never once made the allegation that you've made today that $1 billion was squandered. In point of fact, he said that there's perhaps less than we should have to show for the result, but he never made the point that you've made.
Okay, a big chunk of $1 billion was wasted then.
Over those years, we spent a considerable amount of money laying the pipe, building the infrastructure, which underscores any electronic health system, dollars that would have to be spent in any circumstance. And another matter, sir, is on the matter of sole source contracts. As you well know, until Premier McGuinty made the step recently to say those will no longer be appropriate in the government of Ontario, governments of all parties over decades have utilized that mechanism. Your party and the predecessor ministers that I had at the Ministry of Health, including Elizabeth Whitmer, used the mechanism of sole source contracts at Smart Systems for Health to the tunes of millions of dollars. So we are working in a future focus where we've changed the rules with respect to sole sourcing. Premier McGuinty has done that. And certainly the auditor has said that money could have been spent more effectively, and everybody acknowledges that. But at no time did the auditor make the allegation that you've said that he made, that those dollars were squandered.
I think he has said a big chunk of money was wasted, and I think people, whether they said it's $200 million, $100 million, $50 million, or $400 million, it's a lot of money.
It's nice that you're now under my presence correcting the record from the $1 billion that you started with a few moments ago. But the point is, you've asked me to carefully review what the auditor said, and I have done that, sir, and take seriously those things that he has suggested need to be done better. Those are lessons that I can assure you.
I think the email suggests, regardless of what I might say, George, it's going to dog you. Because people are writing about it, not me. I asked you their questions. But in any event, we'll come back.
You asked me their questions with your own spin, sir, and I do think
that's what we do. It wasn't my spin, but we ask questions here to make sure we elicit an answer.
Each of us in public life has a track record. You have one that might have the potential to dog you as well. I mean, the point is, as public officials, we have a responsibility for all of those things that we've done. I delivered 600,000 doctors to 600,000 more people, and that will be part of my record as well.
Okay, well, we'll look. Andrew Harris writes, George from the 416, would George toll the DVP and the Gardner for non-Toronto residents and put the revenue into improving our roads and infrastructure?
Well, it's a good question, and lots of people are very focused on transportation issues. It's also one of those issues that has, I think, in our city, a bit of an urban and suburban divide. Point of the matter is that there's lots that needs to be done to get the city moving. I'm going to take a look over the course of the next many months at the development of policies, and this will be one of those that certainly warrants lots of consideration. The thing that I would say is that we have to recognize, I think, that the commercial property tax base in the city of Toronto contributes very substantially to the city's revenues. If individuals that are working in these places are coming from the 905, does not mean that we should lose sight of the businesses that operate here. I'm interested in enhancing employment overall in Toronto. If you look at what's happened in the last decade and a half, tremendous population growth in Toronto, stagnant or declining number of jobs available in Toronto.
That's one of the reasons why actually the traffic sometimes going out of town on the Gardiner and the Parkway is as heavy as coming into town.
So downtown in the neighborhoods where we live, we've seen a lot of new condos built. But unfortunately, the people that are in those condos are not necessarily able to walk to work. In very many cases, they're driving to Markham and to other places that have beat us to the punch. So lots to consider in the context of transportation, and these are some of the issues that I'll certainly be tucking into.
Okay, Keith writes here, and he says, Mr. Smitherman, I'm a close follower of provincial and municipal politics. I have witnessed the mild-mannered David Miller lose his cool on occasion. The nickname you have earned is Furious George, so I wonder if you'll be able to keep your cool as mayor. Representing a city like Toronto means you can't lose your cool very often. As Furious George, do you think you have the temperament to run the city?
Well, I think it's a clever moniker. It rhymes nicely with curious, and I can see why people have wanted to use it. Associated with my time in public life is bringing to the public policy matters at hand a sense of passion and determination to get them to a different finishing point. But I certainly recognize in the context of seeking to lead a council that a mayor has to reach out all across beyond ideological and party lines, and I'm very, very excited about the prospects of doing that. Certainly the people of Toronto for the next 50 weeks are going to have a full opportunity to decide for themselves whether my temperament, skill set, energy, knowledge is to be put to work for them or not, and that's the fundamental choice that's available to voters.
Okay, Sean Simons writes, will you eliminate the Toronto land transfer tax, possibly replace it with general property tax increases? It is unfair, he says, to put such a large tax burden on those buying property while wealthy homeowners who don't move can have lower property taxes.
Well, I think it's all part and parcel of the matter of fiscal issues. I think one thing is important to keep in mind is that while I'm transitioning to be a candidate, obviously the current mayor and council has an obligation to frame a budget for the coming year, and we'll look forward to their deliberations and to them doing what is their responsibility. Obviously, there are many that are in opposition to those taxes which have been imposed, but we have to take a look at it in the context of the broad fiscal policy for the City of Toronto, and I couldn't really speak to that yet, but certainly anticipate as the campaign moves forward that be lots of discussion on matters just like that.
All right.
One.
Dominic writes, can you ask Mr. Smitherman if he's allowed to keep his big MPP pension, that's how he describes it, and still, if elected mayor, collect his salary?
Well, actually, the MPP pension is relatively modest. For 10 and a half years at Queen's Park, my pension will represent, I think, approximately $90,000. I believe I get to keep that. What I'm actually facing, today I took a $50,000 pay cut, and I'm actually facing the prospects of running in a campaign without income for many, many, many months. This is what I'm offering and putting on the line in support of the people of the City of Toronto. So I think that the gentleman should reevaluate this notion of big fat pensions. They don't exist at Queen's Park. They may still be in place at other levels of government, but they're not there at Queen's Park.
That is true.
You and I have talked about that many times.
Last 20 seconds, and I have to ask you to that. 20-second message to the listeners before you go.
Well, I just want to say I hope that people, they say in politics, always ask for your vote. And I hope over the course of the next 50 weeks, I can gain the support of the people of Toronto. I'm certainly looking very much forward to the opportunity to present my vision and to bring forward with the knowledge, skill set, and all the energy and passion that I have, the dedication and love that I have for this great city.
Somehow we'll run across each other, I'm sure. George Smitherman, thank you for coming in. And this is the Live Drive with John Tory on News Talk 1010.